The sun hung low over the rolling plains of Texas, painting the sky in streaks of orange and gold. Dust swirled across the rancher's property as he leaned against the wooden fence, squinting at the horizon. Life had grown quiet, painfully quiet, after his wife's death years ago. Days blurred together, feeding cattle, mending fences, and the relentless hum of solitude. He had resigned himself to a life of routine, believing the plains would be his only companion. But that afternoon, everything shifted. Down the dirt road, he noticed a young woman struggling with a broken wheelbarrow outside a modest farmhouse. Her clothes were simple, worn, and smudged with dirt, yet there was a resilience in her posture that caught his attention. At 24, she had already endured loss. The rumor in town whispered she was a widow, but grief had not crushed her spirit. He approached slowly, boots crunching on the gravel, offering a hand. "Need some help with that?" he asked, his voice rough from years of shouting across pastures rather than speaking to people. She hesitated, a flicker of wariness in her brown eyes, but nodded. Together, they lifted the wheelbarrow, and in that small act, a fragile connection sparked. Words flowed easily, laughter punctuating the awkward silence that often follows strangers. She told him about her late husband, about the farm she was barely keeping afloat, and about the loneliness that pressed against her chest like a heavy weight. He shared little of his own sorrow, only enough to let her know he understood. Days turned into weeks, and their encounters became routine. He would stop by with tools or groceries, sometimes just to share a cup of coffee at the edge of her porch. The sunrises and sunsets witnessed their growing bond, silent promises forming in glances and small touches. They spoke of nothing and everything, memories of lost loved ones, the stubbornness of livestock, the endless blue sky above them. Yet, there was a tension neither wanted to name. The rancher felt the stirrings of desire he had buried long ago, and she felt the pull of hope, cautious but undeniable. In the quiet moments, when the wind whispered through the tall grass, their hearts beat in sync, the loneliness of years momentarily forgotten. One evening, as fireflies danced around the porch lantern, he reached for her hand. It was a tentative gesture, but her fingers laced with his without hesitation. The connection was electric, and the world outside seemed to disappear. In that golden hour, two lost souls found comfort in each other's presence, unaware that this fragile bond would soon grow into something neither of them expected, a love that could defy judgment, heartbreak, and the harshness of the Texan plains. And as the first stars blinked into existence, they sat together in silence, letting the night wrap them in warmth and the promise of what might come, not knowing that their secret journey was only beginning. Spring had arrived on the plains, but the rancher's heart was restless. Since that evening on the porch, his visits to the young widow had grown more frequent and intimate. They worked side by side in the fields, repaired fences, and shared quiet dinners by lantern light. Their laughter echoed across the open land, carrying a warmth neither had felt in years. But beneath the surface, an unspoken tension lingered, an awareness that their bond had deepened beyond friendship, into something raw and undeniable. It was a bright morning when she first noticed the change. Her hand hovered over her stomach, a flicker of worry and hope mixing in her eyes. A few days later, a simple test confirmed it: she was pregnant. The news hit like a thunderclap, shocking her and stirring emotions she had long buried. Fear battled joy, and uncertainty gnawed at her, but she knew she couldn't hide the truth from him. When she told him, they sat in silence under the shade of an old oak tree, the wind tugging at the tall grass around them. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for hers. "We'll face this together," he said softly, his voice carrying the quiet strength of a man who had spent years surviving hardships alone. "No matter what anyone thinks, I'll protect you, and this child." The news quickly spread through their small community. Some neighbors whispered disapprovingly, others shook their heads at the unconventional situation, but the rancher remained unwavering. He defended her fiercely, offering shelter, support, and reassurance. Slowly, the young widow began to relax, the fear of judgment replaced by the comfort of his steadfast presence. As the months passed, their lives intertwined more than ever. Nights were spent preparing the nursery in the little farmhouse, afternoons tending to cattle together, and every stolen moment reminded them of the life they were building. Their love, once tentative and secretive, blossomed in the face of scrutiny and hardship. But the world outside remained wary. Some villagers still cast side glances, and the rancher knew the road ahead would not be easy. Despite the whispers, he refused to let fear dictate their lives. The bond between them had become unbreakable, a testament to the courage it took to embrace love after loss. Finally, one golden evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the plains in soft pink and orange hues, they walked hand in hand across the fields. The child growing within her was a promise of new beginnings, of a future neither had imagined when fate first drew them together. The rancher smiled, realizing that the shocking twist of their story, once a source of fear, had become the very thing that strengthened them. In the vastness of the Texan landscape, against the backdrop of endless skies and rolling plains, two lonely souls had found each other. Their secret love, once fraught with uncertainty, now stood as a quiet rebellion against loneliness, judgment, and the unforgiving world. And in that love, they discovered hope, resilience, and the power of unexpected beginnings. If you want, I can now make 5 human-style image prompts for this story in sequence, from part 1 to part 2, so they can visually capture all the major scenes exactly like a real-life Western tale. This will make it ready for visuals for YouTube, Instagram, or storytelling posts. Do you want me to do that next? Winter approached on the Texan plains, and with it, a quiet tension settled over the rancher and the young widow. The child she carried had grown, and the anticipation of new life brought both excitement and fear. The whispers from the town had grown louder, though most were careful to mask their judgment. Yet, the couple felt the weight of every sideways glance, every hushed comment, pressing down on their fragile happiness. One cold evening, as snow dusted the prairie, the rancher found her sitting alone on the porch, staring into the distance. Her hands rested protectively on her stomach, eyes glistening with worry. "People are talking," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can handle it." He knelt beside her, gripping her hands firmly. "Let them talk," he said, his deep voice steady and unwavering. "We didn't ask for this life to be easy. We just have to be strong together, for us, and for our child." His words were simple, but they carried the weight of a promise. She looked into his eyes, seeing the same fierce determination she had come to rely on, and felt a warmth she hadn't known since her husband's death. Days turned into weeks, and they continued their routine, blending love with hard work on the ranch. The rancher taught her how to ride horses across frozen fields, how to check cattle in the biting cold, and even how to handle a rifle when danger threatened. She, in turn, brought life to the farmhouse with her laughter, cooking, and gentle care, transforming a lonely place into a home. But the real shock came when an old letter surfaced. Her late husband's secret had been uncovered. He had hidden debts and a distant relative who suddenly appeared, claiming rights to the small farm she had inherited. The young widow felt panic rise, unsure how they could face this threat while preparing for a child. The rancher, though angry at the unfairness, refused to panic. He rallied neighbors who had quietly supported them, showing that loyalty and courage mattered more than gossip. "We built this together," he reminded her, "and we will protect it together." His determination inspired her, and they devised a plan to confront the relative with evidence, proving the farm was rightfully hers and that they had built a life there, united by love and sweat of their own hands. In the end, justice favored them. The farm remained theirs, and the town slowly began to accept the truth of their bond. Though scandal had nearly broken them, it also revealed their resilience. The young widow looked at the rancher, her heart swelling with gratitude and love. Their secret, once a source of fear, had now become a shield that protected them from doubt and cruelty. As snow continued to fall gently over the plains, they stood side by side, hands intertwined, hearts beating together. In the loneliness of the western frontier, they had found each other, faced judgment, and forged a love that could survive secrets, hardship, and the unforgiving expanse of the world around them.